part 2 of my tutorial on how to solve a 3x3x5 blindfolded, solving the outer pieces. We'll use a method for this that is very similar to old Pachman. You'll recognize most of the concepts, and only the algorithms really are different. You might be wondering how we even know where these outer pieces are, since we've moved them all over the cube while solving the inner pieces. And I'll talk about that in part 3 when I discuss memorization. For now, just trust me that this is the right location. To solve the corners, we'll use this algorithm. F2, U prime, F2, D, R2, D prime, R2, U, R2, U prime, R2. What this algorithm does is switches the buffer corner at UBL with the target corner at DFR, while also switching these two edges in the buffer area. This means that the setup moves we can use are R2, F2, and any move of the thin D layer. In many cases, these setup moves will actually cancel out with the algorithm. If this confuses you too much, you can instead learn it as 3 algorithms, where you can shoot to UBR simply by moving the R2 at the end of the algorithm to the front of the algorithm, or to UFL by moving the F2 at the front to the end. Or, if you'd prefer, you can just cancel out the setup moves. If we have parity on this case, these two edges will be switched. We can solve these by doing U2, R2U, R2U, R2U2, R2U2, R2U, R2U prime, R2U2. And this is actually just one of the algorithms we'll use for step 4 with the U2 on the front and the end. We'll use 2 algorithms to solve the outer edges. The first one will be U, R2, U2, R2, U2, R2, U. This switches the edge here and here, while also flipping this buffer area. The second algorithm is R2U, R2U, R2U2, R2U2, R2U, R2U prime, R2. This switches these two edges here, while flipping this buffer area. Since this whole thing is our buffer area, our setup moves are fairly restricted. We can only do L2, any move of the thin U layer, and any move of the thin D layer. Probably the easiest way to solve these outer edges is to do it exactly the same way as the old Pachman edges. We'll use this yellow-blue piece as the buffer edge, and we'll use any of these 3 as the target edge, using a different algorithm to shoot to each. For example, here's a white-green edge. We will set it up with L2, and then do that first algorithm, undo the setup move, and you'll see that it's solved. And we'll just repeat this. Sometimes, however, we can use a much faster way. If we have a very short cycle of pieces, for example if only 2 pieces are swapped, we can just swap these directly, rather than swapping the buffer with one, then the other, then the first one again to switch the 2 edges, which would use a whole lot of moves. Here's the algorithm we'll use to solve the outer corners. F2, U prime, F2, D, R2, D prime, R2U, oops,